What's going on, everyone? It's your Rifle here, and in today's video I'm going to be going over a weapon that you get in the Crota's raid. This weapon is a fusion rifle called Light of the Abyss, and this fusion rifle is a one-of-a-kind kind of fusion rifle, just because of the ricochet shots, and it stands out from all the other fusion rifles just because of the texture on the weapon. You guys know how all the Crota's raid weapons look like. They always have this similar texture, and this texture in my opinion looks pretty badass. But to start this off, Light of the Abyss has arc damage. The stats on the Light of the Abyss can vary, but as you guys can see, the overall stats of this fusion rifle is better than average. But anyways, how the stats could vary, I have noticed that the red dot ORS1 increases range and stability, so I've noticed that this seems to work best with the Light of the Abyss. Also, the true sight scope isn't that bad as well. But anyways, this weapon is absolutely phenomenal in PvP and PvE. Of course, keep in mind it is a fusion rifle, so range is going to matter on how useful this weapon can be. I mean, think about how many enemies actually have arc shields. There is quite a bit of enemies with arc shields. Great for taking out fallen leaders and great for taking out knights, hive of any sort. And it's also great for taking out crazy battles, like where there is tons of enemies, because the perks on this weapon can be nicely set up for crowded areas. Unless you're going up against a wizard with a solar shield, but still, this fusion rifle still does some pretty damn good damage. When upgrading this weapon, you get a perk called Crowd Control. Kills with this weapon grant bonus damage for a short time, so this means this perk comes especially useful against a lot of enemies, so it is great for crowds, hitting the Crowd Control perk name. A great example for this weapon to be useful is against hive enemies. I mean, think about it, hive are always bunched together. I mean, of course, there's always enemies that are bunched together, but hive, there is tons and tons that keep coming, and we know the hive comes in large groups. So that's why I found that this weapon works great for hive, and not to mention, of course, the hive disruptor on this weapon. But anyways, in the second skill tree, we have skip rounds, enhanced battery, and speed reload. Starting with the skip rounds, as you guys can see, the rounds can ricochet off surfaces, and it'll let you carry more rounds in reserve. And you never know, when you miss a shot, you never know if you're going to end up hitting something. As you can see here, I was just shooting at the ground and it shoots up at enemies. I was just having a little fun with it. But the next perk that we have is the enhanced battery, and I don't really recommend using this perk just because you only get one extra shot. You only get 8 shots now instead of 7, and 7 is already a pretty large magazine size for a fusion rifle. It's not horrible. And lastly but not least, we have the speed reload, and I suggest using this in tough crowds and tough situations, just because you will be using a lot more shots. An example is Crota's raid, the first part where you have to keep going, running from the thrall, you have to make it through that labyrinth, and your shots matter, so you want to have a fast reload and try to keep up the pace against all those thrall that keep coming after you. So that's when I suggest using speed reload. But all in all, the main perk that I use for the second skill tree is the ricochet shots, the skip rounds. The next perk that we have is hip fire, and this is actually a nice perk to have, especially on a fusion rifle. The weapon has bonus accuracy while firing from the hip, so you don't even have to zoom in with the fusion rifle, but I just zoom in just cause it's just habit for me. But hey, that's nice, that's handy. The freaking fusion rifle's reticle is humongous. It's gonna be almost impossible not to hit an enemy. And when you do land a nice hit on an enemy in PvP, you kill them in one shot. And for all you Iron Banner fans out there, this weapon also does some good damage. But all in all, does this weapon lean more toward PvP or PvE? And in my opinion, it leans more toward PvE. Just because in my opinion, there are some other better fusion rifles than this one in the PvP. One example of a good PvP fusion rifle is the Plug 1, just because the accelerated coils on it and the range. Accelerated coils is important in the PvP world, but this Light of the Abyss still can do some work in the PvP, don't get me wrong. This is an all-around useful fusion rifle. It's not just particularly for PvP, and it's not just particularly for PvE, but it works very well for both situations. And when you actually find that in a gun, that means the gun is actually good. I mean, come on. If it works well against other Guardians, and it works well against AI, that's telling you something. But that's about it for the perks. I mean, of course we have the Hive Disruptor, which I already briefly went over, but if you guys don't know, the Hive Disruptor increases damage to Hive Majors. And of course, the 4 other upgrade damage. Now the final question is this fusion rifle really worth the upgrade? In my opinion, if you are a fusion rifle fan, I highly suggest upgrading this. Just because, once again, think about how many shields require arc damage weapons. There's quite a bit, and this fusion rifle drains shields and drains health. And it's also great for taking on certain situations, and it's a great boss killer and major killer. Not to mention, a pretty useful tip for the fusion rifle it can be particularly handy against harpies. The reason why, harpies end up exploding and can do damage radius. And did you know in Greek mythology and Roman mythology, a harpy was a female monster in the form of a bird with a human face? They steal food from their victims while they are eating and carry evildoers. It also states they seem originally to have been wind spirits. Their name means snatchers, which I just thought that was kind of odd. Funny thing is, before I looked up the information of a harpy, I already knew what a harpy was just because of the Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Back when I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh all the time. Back in my Yu-Gi-Oh card playing days. Oh yeah. Well, actually, this goes with pretty much any enemy that explodes, besides like the tank and the fallen walker. Oh, and the explosive thrall, I can't forget about them. They do not disintegrate either, but you get what I'm saying. Fusion rifle, it makes the target disintegrate, so no explosion, which means no damage radius. So that ends up helping you in the long run. And also a DLC is coming up, which is supposed to be here soon, March 10th of 2015, the House of Wolves, which I believe the Crota's Inn raid is helping us get prepared for the House of Wolves raid. And the reason why this fusion rifle can be handy in the future, a lot of enemies are going to have arc shields. So that's when this fusion rifle is also going to be particularly handy. And the reason why I know they're going to have arc shields is because in the front of the cover of House of Wolves, it's a fallen leader on there. So that is resembling that this DLC is going to be based on Fallen. And the majority of Fallen have arc shields. And there's another reason why you should fully upgrade this weapon. So if it's just sitting in your vault and just collecting dust, put this weapon to some use, get it upgraded so you're well prepared for the future. And if you want to use it now, you'll be prepared for now as well. I'm telling you guys, this fusion rifle is well worth it. And the ones that have already gotten this and upgraded and just seeing what my review is of the weapon, well, you guys should know a little bit that this fusion rifle has dominated. I mean, think about it. How many times has this fusion rifle actually let you down in a battle? There's not that many. Well, that is just my opinion. Of course, if you're in a situation where you're having to fight a target that is a little bit further range, well, of course, this fusion rifle isn't going to be the weapon that you want to use. I'm just saying, in close quarters, this weapon has done me right. And I am recommending it to all of you. How you can end up getting this weapon, you can get this weapon from Crota himself. It hasn't really dropped much for me. Actually, it's only dropped twice. I guess that all depends on your guys' RNG, but it can be received from Crota. But that's about wrapping up this review, guys. Hopefully in some way this review has helped you out. And also, if you get this weapon, you'll be a little bit more prepared for the House of Wolves DLC if you end up getting that. But I'm out of here though, everyone. If the video was enjoyable, please remember to leave a like. It is much appreciated by me, and it helps the video out a lot. Thanks everyone for watching, and most importantly, thank you all for your time. Peace. And in today's video, I'm going to be going over the hard Crota's Inn raid. And a lot of us know that this raid can take some time to beat, especially finding a good squad to be able to get through this. Well, in this video, I'm going to be covering a certain strategy to make this fight a lot more